All right, we are live. What is up, ladies and gentlemen, Mets fans from wherever you can join us? We are here on the True Mets Talk Off Day Show, talking all things Mets, talking about this huge, some would say even monumental series win over the Seattle Mariners in the past three games that we saw, as well as taking a look at some individualized statistics for our New York Mets, looking at some players' performances over the past couple of weeks, and also taking a look at what's ahead in the road ahead for the New York Mets as they endure this off day and travel to Washington to take on the Nationals for a three-game set. As always, I understand it's 4:40, just past that. It's early. It's not quite quote unquote evening time just yet. So as people trickle into this stream, please make sure to drop a thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy these conversations, comment your thoughts and opinions in the live chat as well. Let us know, Mets fans, are they back? Are they back? We'll see. We'll get into it. Zach, how you doing?
Doing good, feeling good. First series win since I believe before the trade deadline. That sweep of the Giants in San Francisco feels like forever ago, but it was a big one. This is one where the Mets could have easily swept the Mariners if it wasn't for a bullpen implosion on Friday night, and then they were able to right the ship after a spark from the newly called up rookie. I guess not technically a rookie yet in Nolan who looked phenomenal. And you just hope that's the kick in the ass that the rest of the starters needed, especially Clay Holmes going out and pitching his best start in some time. I mean, he looked really good last night. Obviously, he wasn't able to get into the sixth inning, but he was more efficient than normal. And he didn't walk too many batters. He just had trouble putting some guys away, but still was very solid last night. And what we need from someone who effectively is our number 4, number 5 starter at this point with Senga, Minaya, and Peterson ahead of both him and McLean. So that's good. And then the offense came alive. They did come alive against the Braves a bit, in the first two games, scoring 13 and 6 runs respectively. But the things are coming together for the Mets at what seems to be the right time. They have a road trip coming up where you expect to win at least 3, split a road trip. And then they come back home and they face the Phillies, a banged up Phillies team right now with some key pieces out and going to be missing some significant time. So if there was any time for the Mets to get hot, right now is the time, especially with the Philadelphia Phillies. While they have widened the gap, they have not closed that door yet. They have left it open for us, and the Mets need to come charging through, led by Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso, who are all getting hot at the perfect time.
Listen, you are 100% right about that. It is crunch time, and it is now or never for the New York Mets with less than 40 games to go in this marathon of a season filled with 162 games. And the division is far from over, especially seeing the Phillies. How many more times? Maybe like 7 times.
7.
It's not an insurmountable feat by any stretch of the imagination. And they need to carry some sort of momentum from this Mariners series. And this was such a monumental series because we would have hoped that resurgence would have came at home against a division rival, right? One that is struggling in the Atlanta Braves, but it didn't. And things went south very quickly in that series for them. So a really, really good bounce back series. Again, drop the comments in the live chat. I definitely appreciate Rob, I'm sure, is doing an off day stream later on. Go check him out on his channel. Ray in the chat as well. Keep on dropping those comments for those of you all who are listening into this. And also follow Zach over on X. You can find some really good Mets tweets from Zach over on X at Sunny Days Zach. Okay, let's get into this series a little bit more. We'll save the Nolan McLean discussion for game 2. We could talk about some of the other things that happened, especially with the bullpen, because, there are some pieces in this bullpen that are objectively struggling, and there are some pieces that are holding down the fort. And Ray's kind of talking about it as well, and we'll definitely get into it. But, game 1, this series was looking like it could be another one of those abysmal series where the bullpen blows the lead in a major way, as the Mets lost 11-9 at Citi Field after having a 6-4 lead in those middle innings. But they get the job done in games 2 and 3. The one thing that I want to talk about, if we're starting off this series recap on a little bit of a sour note with the loss, is Ryan Helsley. I think we need to talk about Ryan Helsley and just how badly we are going to need him to figure it out in this bullpen for the New York Mets. He is sporting a 7 ERA over his first 6 innings of work for the New York Mets, and he is just not the version that we want to see, not the version of Ryan Helsley that we want to see. And that's supposed to be contributing in a major way alongside Edwin Diaz in the back end of this bullpen. Now, are there long-term concerns about Ryan Helsley from my standpoint and my point of view? I don't think so, but we need him to get it going, and that's for sure. But other pieces that came over recently as well, and Gregory Soto are producing very, very well. And he is just absolutely on a tear right now. 9 straight scoreless outings for Gregory Soto, even dating back to being in a Baltimore Orioles uniform. What do you make, first of all, of that game 1 loss? You know, the offense showed up. They provided runs early and often. They got this pitching a lead, and they just couldn't hold it down, Zach.
It was just it was a disheartening loss, to see the bullpen implode like that, led by Reed Garrett and then Ryan Helsley having that disastrous, what was it, 6th inning or 5th inning when they gave up, I believe it was 6 runs. No, it was more than 6 runs to the Braves, or the Mariners, whatever it was. But yeah, it was tough to watch. That was tough to watch, and it was tough to see someone like that, someone we expected to be the shutdown 8th inning guy, a great closer from the Cardinals, come here and just kind of flounder a bit in his first several appearances. Last night looked a bit better, and hopefully that's a sign of what's to come. And just hopefully you can get these guys right, him and Taylor Rogers, who hasn't been as good as he was in a San Francisco Giants uniform, to start pitching how we expected them to, because we need that bridge to Edwin Diaz with guys like Brian Stanek not producing like he did for us last season at the later halves of last season. And then Reed Garrett, who's kind of really struggled since, I believe, the start of June. He has looked pretty bad. I think he has a collective 5 ERA in that time, maybe even higher. So things haven't been great out of the bullpen for the new acquisitions outside of Gregory Soto. But these are 2 guys that have been around the league a while, so I'm not necessarily too worried about them in the long term, especially given what they did last night. Both of them look solid, so hopefully they can continue to right the ship. And another off day to potentially work on their mechanics and get their heads right before we get into a tough stretch of 9 games in a row, if I'm not mistaken, all facing division rivals. So we just need more consistency in those middle innings, especially if our starters can't get deep. But hopefully these last 2 starts, these last 2 games, are a sign of what's to come from our starters being able to at least get into the 5th and maybe even pitch into the 6th inning on a consistent basis, and be effective with their pitches, be efficient with their pitches, and not, skirt danger all the time like they have been doing, essentially getting lucky. Whereas last night and the game where Nolan McLean pitched, which we'll get into, where they really weren't facing too much danger. I know Holmes didn't really face much last night. I think he had the 1 bases loaded jam in the 3rd or 4th inning. And outside of that, he really didn't face too much danger. And same with McLean. So we need them to hand over the game to these relievers, and give them a clean slate. Not have them come into danger, which has happened way too often, where they've had to come into bad situations and just kind of make what's bad become bad even worse. So it just they need to figure it out. It's really what needs to happen. They need to figure it out and learn to pitch in some dangerous situations, but also we need the starters to help them out and give them clean innings to work with.
And I think producing those clean innings will help by not walking people, which is
100%.
exactly what contributed to Clay Holmes' success in those 5, I believe, scoreless innings against the
Yep. One
Mariners in
run.
Game 3, or 1 run against the Mariners in Game 3 in the Little League World Series Classic between these two teams. That was a pretty cool venue, and that's something that the Mets have participated in a couple of times over the past few years. But, nonetheless, I definitely agree with that. This bullpen's going to need to lock it down. And trust me, they will be in a lot more dangerous situations with the way that this rotation has looked all in all. But the rotation, this applies to any pitching because this has been one of the biggest kryptonites for the New York Mets pitchers for quite some time over the past couple of years is the walks. And even Nolan McClain himself, and we'll talk about him here in depth in just a second, was, falling a little bit of victim to those walks that he was giving up. I think it was a total of 4, as we'll see on the next slide. But, to turn it over to the offensive production, the offensive talk, I cannot be more mesmerized by how this offense is producing right now. I mean, congratulations to Francisco Lindor, who is batting over 500 within the past week, and he has just earned National League Player of the Week honors. So congratulations to him. He's hitting, over 320 in the last 2 weeks as well. So it's not like it's only a week's worth of sample size. Pete Alonso is having a red hot month of August right now.
Mhm.
28, I believe, over 1,000 OPS. He just hit in this game 1 that we're talking about, even though the comeback fell short. He hit the 100 RBI mark already this season, which is really good news. It's really good news for him, too, with the upcoming payday that he's going to get. But
Mhm.
this offense, all in all, looks really good. And I think the biggest takeaway for me in this series, in 7-3 win over the Mariners that we witnessed yesterday, is Mark Vientos. What a game for Mark Vientos. Huge home run to the opposite field, 2 for 3. If he can continue that or just carry that over, that would be monumental for this lineup because we've been calling for Mark Vientos to figure it out. And yesterday he did so in a big way, but we just hope that that sort of consistency translates in the next few games for him because it was a while. I think it was like 4 or 5 games that we went without Santos get a start, and we were all kind of scratching our heads. I know Rob was for sure, and he comes back and does that. So that's really good news. But the other thing is what Yamid was talking about here, in the live chat is Francisco Alvarez. And we were just talking about this before we went live, right? Hopefully nothing serious with the injury to the thumb, sliding in head first, I believe in the 7th inning. He did stay in the game to run, but he was pulled thereafter. I think he's getting an MRI right now. Just on an absolute tear ever since being recalled up from AAA. I think he's batting over 320 himself since being called up and just looks like a locked in different version at the plate of Francisco Alvarez, which is exactly what this team needed, exactly what he needed after starting off this season pretty poorly. I just really hope nothing comes of this situation for Alvarez and he can avoid an IL stint. But something in the back of my mind is telling me get prepared and be prepared to be disappointed. I don't know, Zach. What do you think?
I mean, it's a weird situation. The thing that has me, I guess, a little bit optimistic is the fact that Mendoza did go on foul territory today and said they're still trying to figure out what it is, like what the injury is, and he obviously was sent for the MRI, and there's no definitive news, and he's hopeful it's nothing serious. My guess is that considering it went right to an MRI, there was no worry of a broken bone sliding into second base, but probably the worry of a dislocation or a ligament injury, and hopefully that's not the case because if it's one of those, he will be out for the rest of the regular season, most likely, and maybe even the playoffs. But you never know with these thumbs. It could just be a thing where he jammed it real bad and he basically didn't have any grip strength with that right hand. But if it was something where if he dislocated it, my guess is they would have probably taken him right out of the game. They wouldn't even risk him running the bases and potentially injuring it even further, sliding into third or home base. So maybe we're going to be able to skirt some danger, but you have to be worried about this as this has been a recurring injury for him with, I believe it was more so his left hand, the first 2 thumb or hand injuries. Now, obviously it's to his throwing hand and his right hand. So something to be worried about, and hopefully we get some news that it's just, a sprain or a bad bone bruise, and if it's a 7 day or a 10 day IL, whatever it may be, I'm fine with that. If we're talking about a short IL stint where he's going to miss the minimum, he just needs time to get the swelling down and get, the ability to grip the ball better and the bat. I'm fine with that. If he's out an extended period of time, that's where I'm worried, because this has been something that's recurring. And as a catcher, you don't want to injure your hands. You need your hands more so than basically any other position, as you're sitting there have to receive the ball, and transfer and be able to throw runners out, and obviously grip the baseball bat to swing. So yeah, that'd be a huge blow, especially what he's given us over the past few weeks since being recalled. And obviously, what you get from a guy like Luis Torrens is nowhere near what you're going to get from Alvarez, even when he's not at his best. So that'd be a huge blow to this offense. But at least right now, we have our big bats are showing up, and they're producing to at least shoulder a lot of that load if he is to miss some time. So we just got to pray and hope it's nothing serious, that it's a short IL stint at most, and where he's back here in New York for that Philadelphia Phillies series, or the next homestand at least.
Yeah, and this is where I do disagree with Marcus here, saying not the end of the world. We'll be watching Torrens throw out base runners. To me, it's not really the end of the world. It's not going to actually derail the season. I mean, if the Mets are talented enough, they're going to go on a run and catch the Phillies for this division regardless. But, this is huge for the Mets lineup, because we at one point thought Torrens was just going to pick up where Alvarez left off when Alvarez was struggling, and he didn't. We were like, we can't get much worse than what Francisco Alvarez was producing before he went to AAA. And we did. Torrens actually produced worse numbers offensively than Francisco Alvarez. So for the lineup and for the offensive purposes, yeah, this is pretty big news. And we are hoping to avoid anything serious, if at all possible, with that thumb. But in the same sentence here, yeah, you probably do upgrade defensively, as we will continue to watch Torrens just control the run game from opposing teams as well. But with an offense that has struggled for quite some time this season, and finally watching them get going, this is not what I wanted to see. This is what no one wanted to see. He was on a fantastic run ever since getting called up. But again, in that 7-3 victory, multiple multi-hit games from the Mets, Jeff McNeil, Vientos, Lindor. I know Juan Soto went 0 for 2, did the Soto shuffle as everyone wanted to see, but he did take 3 walks, and he continues to get on base at a very high clip, just shy of a 400 OBP. Listen, the bullpen, all in all, they did their job as well. You mentioned Helsley, a nice bounce back outing. Edwin Diaz getting things done, even though he surrendered a home run, I believe, to Eugenio Suarez in that game 2, where he went 2 innings to make it 3-1. But let's just talk about, at this point, what everyone wants to talk about, right? And this is the savior, quote unquote, of the rotation with the way that they were going. Nolan McLean had himself a day on Saturday.
Oh yeah.
Had himself a day, and Nolan McLean is officially here. I know Mendoza said that he is going to make another start officially, as if anyone didn't know that already with the current state of this rotation. And we do have other news to get to and other talking points to get to within this rotation, within this stream. I think more notably is Paul Blackburn basically getting DFA'd, or he will get DFA'd and put on waivers here very shortly. So he's not going to be an option for the Mets. And I think that we are all happy about that, because I don't think Paul Blackburn would have made a difference anyways, even though he provided some long relief against the Braves in the past series. But what a debut for Nolan McLean. 5 1/3 innings, no earned runs, 2 hits given up, 4 walks, which is the one thing that I think that he could definitely improve on in his next start, and 8 strikeouts. I mean, he had the put away pitches going. And if you take a look at the Savant page, given, this outing, that curveball and the
Insane.
spin rate that he was able to generate on that curveball was a thing of beauty. The only thing that I think, and maybe, again, what's not to like about this type of start, especially with the way the rotation was going, but the one thing that I think that he's going to make, or need to make, an adjustment is maybe the pitch selection, because 91 pitches in this outing for McLean, 33 of those pitches were sweepers, right? This compared to the sinkers, which was at 24.
6%.
So I think that he's going to need to use the fastball a little bit more. But, that sweeper curveball combination in his off speed arsenal that he was utilizing against the Mariners was working for him, and it resulted in 8 strikeouts. I mean, he is just an athlete, dude. And you saw the way that he was able to move on the mound, that ridiculous backhanded or behind the back grab to start the double play up the middle to Beatty onto Pete Alonso to get the double play. I mean, he's an athlete. So really happy to see him finally up in Queens making a difference at the right time and in a crucial time in this season for the Mets. I couldn't be more thrilled. But again, there are still things to work on, even given these numbers for McLean in his next outing. And I'm so mad. I'm going to be at this series upcoming in DC for all 3 games. I'm not going to be able to watch McLean pitch in person, man. I'm pissed.
Just missing it. But what an incredible start. I mean, he controlled the mound. I mean, he wasn't afraid to go after any of those hitters, especially with some of the big hitters they have, Eugenio Suarez, Cal Raleigh, J-Rod. He attacked them, and he was able to get them looking foolish. These professional hitters who have been around the block for some years now, some guys that are some of the best players in all of Major League Baseball, and he had them out there confused as to what was going to happen. I mean, just the way he was spinning the baseball, and that curveball looked wicked, something that you really don't see too much of anymore. You see more slider sweeper combos, and he had both the slider, the sweeper, and a curveball, just different angles, different breaks on these pitches, and just all coming from the same slot, out of his hand, looking like a fastball, and it just drops off the face of the earth. And the walks, I think, can be a problem, but he's someone that didn't allow the walks to torpedo his start. He would walk someone and then go right back after the next guy, So he would walk. He was walking a few guys, and even one of the walks wasn't. It was reported after that it should have been called a strikeout on J.P. Crawford. So even though there's 4 on the box score, it really was only 3. But that is something that he's going to have to work on, and it's something that he did struggle a bit with in the minor leagues. But it never affected the total outlook on his starting appearances. He was still able to get through 5 1/3 here in his debut, but in the minor leagues, even when he'd walk 2, 3, 4 guys, he would still be able to get through 5, 6 innings. So this is someone that I expect to live around the strike zone and just get guys looking foolish up there, especially when he can spin it at the best end. Of all the starting pitching prospects we have, he obviously it has been the most MLB ready, being able to just come up and transition seamlessly, and just something that the Mets needed. They needed a spark in that starting pitching room, to get these other guys going, like Clay Holmes. I mean, he had to be sweating a bit, seeing him called up, and someone like Sproat performing well down in AAA. Could he be moved to the bullpen and Sproat called up, maybe DFAing a guy like Frankie Montas or sending someone like Reed Garrett down who has an option left? So that's something that the Mets definitely needed, and these starting pitchers need a little kick in the ass to get into gear, and realizing that, while they are under contract, their position in the starting rotation might not be safe for this year and definitely next year, with both Sproat and Tong knocking on the door as well. So it's good to see him and hopefully spark what will be our 3 quote unquote best starting pitchers, or our most reliable to some extent, coming up in the series with Senga, Peterson, and Minaya going. So hopefully they're able to learn a little bit from the kid and go out there and get some quality starts going and get deeper into games, and take some of the load off of this bullpen, which is what the Mets have desperately needed basically all season. They've overworked these guys to the extreme. They have the second most relief innings of any major league team, and it's something that's not sustainable. Obviously, they've had the ability to call up guys, DFA guys, send guys down, and obviously they had the 3 trades bringing in fresh relievers. But if you're going to continue to rely on them and go back to them time and time again, they're going to eventually give up runs and blow leads, which has happened. It happened over the last, 10 games. I think DeComo said something like the Mets blew like 7 leads from the bullpen over the last 10 games. So it was good to see him come up and just really shine really shine like we haven't seen since Matt Harvey in 2012 against the Diamondbacks. We haven't seen a rookie come up like that. Maybe DeGrom, but especially with how highly talked about McLean was with how he's been performing this season in AAA.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for what the future holds in this Mets rotation when we're talking about those three names. And I think that that's a valid conversation also to have. Maybe not so much Jonah Tong, although Jonah Tong, don't look now, he had his first AAA start and he
9
pitched 5 and
strikeouts.
2 scoreless innings. Was it 8 or 9 strikeouts? Something ridiculous like that. 9 strikeouts. I mean, okay, this is a perfect like transition to get into because I really do think that this rotation still is missing another guy. Like Braden Sproat, for me, in all honesty, should be up. I don't know why you wait unless there's, a reason that you can come up with, but I would have Sproat up right now and do whatever you got to do as a corresponding move to get whoever you need to get off this team because I think, especially looking at what McLean just did, like these are like season changers. These are team rotation changers. And I don't expect Tong to be up this year. Maybe Stearns and this front office do the unthinkable and they also call him up, but I doubt it. Really good start for him. But I'm just curious, why is Sproat? And I think Marcus is talking about in the chat too, is why even wait on Sproat to be a late August call up ahead of September instead of just making the move right now? Because your own manager, Carlos Mendoza, is going on the Foul Territory podcast, right? That you just alluded to. And he's also talking about the rotation, saying, it's really hard to manage something like this, especially the bullpen, when you have to get somebody warming up almost every single time within the past couple of weeks in the fourth inning and just continuing to stress the importance of getting these guys going and, going later into the game. And that's from the manager's mouth himself.
Yeah.
He's not even trying to sugarcoat it. He's telling, going on this podcast and telling everybody, not that we need to be told because everyone sees it happening, but, I'm just curious when. It's not if, it's when Sproat comes up to the big leagues. Because if it was me, right, if I was David Stearns, the move would have already been made at this point.
Yeah. I agree and I don't agree. I think of the three of them, McLean, Sproat, and Tong, McLean was obviously the most ready. And not only that, if you look at the pitching makeup, the makeup of these three pitchers, McLean was the most he's the most representative of what a starting pitcher is. He has multiple pitches. I mean, at this age, at this point in his career, how young he is, how little he's actually pitched full time, to have 4 or 5 reliable pitches. Not only just reliable, like 3 or 4 plus pitches. It's a testament to how good he actually is and how good of a starter he really can become. And I can't remember if I said this on a show with you earlier in the preseason or if it was with Matt, that I thought McLean was a potential shock to make a run for the starting rotation this year, just given what he is and how much hype he was getting out of spring training. I mean, he flew into the top 100. I think right before he got called up, he's in the top 30 of prospects, so he's really flown up the rankings given what he's done. And then you got guys like Sproat and Tong, who Sproat, obviously a little more seasoned. He pitched in college and has pitched at all 3 levels of the minor leagues over now 2 seasons. He's someone that has finally found his footing over the past month and a half, 2 months in AAA. I think maybe he needs some more time and is probably more looked at as a bullpen addition later down the stretch, and sending a guy like Reed Garrett back down who has an option, or maybe just straight up DFAing Ryan Stanek. And given what he offers you, a big fastball, a decent sweeper, and might need more time to actually develop into a true starter. And Tong probably still just needs more time to right the walks. We've seen it. He has the insane strikeout numbers, but he walks a ton of batters. I think there was one start where he had 8 strikeouts or 7 strikeouts in 3 innings, but also had 5 walks. So that's something you don't want to rush someone like that up. And I think, you basically said it. You don't think he's really an option, but Sproat has also run into his walk issues. And it took a while for him to really find it at AAA against what are better hitters in the minor leagues and more MLB ready prospects, or even just MLB players that are found their way into the AAA, whether it's because they're older and aren't able to play at the level they once did, or just kind of journeymen that are bounced between AAA and the majors. So I think he needs more time, but it probably does. The outlook isn't as great, at least in the short term, as him for him as a starter for this team, as good as the outlook would be for him as a reliever, helping this bullpen down the stretch in September and into the postseason. So I do agree. I think he should be up sooner rather than later, but I don't think he should necessarily be up as a starter, especially if we keep getting what we got from Clay Holmes yesterday. Because if we're getting 5 innings from Clay Holmes, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, only the 1 run allowed, if some sort of average like that, perfectly fine with keeping him as a starter. It seems like the innings wear and tear hasn't fully gotten to him yet. We've seen here and there that he has shown that he might be breaking down, but he could be someone that bounces back and finds his footing once again down the stretch. Whereas Sproat, I don't necessarily want to throw him into that type of situation and potentially ruin his confidence and maybe torpedo a Mets win, or even our season down the stretch and making a run for the NL East, or even holding that last wild card spot. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. But I think given Mendoza's comments, obviously that's something they're thinking about, and something that he's actively calling out the starting pitchers. Like, you got to get your shit together. Things need to be better for you if you want to keep your spot in this rotation, and that no one's safe. I mean, Montas, they gave him the 17 million AAV contract. He's gonna pick up the option. So he's someone that's already been demoted and probably looked at as a DFA candidate for maybe even this season or going into next season. So these guys, while they're under contract, Clay Holmes, it's not a big contract, and you can easily flex him into the bullpen. Manaya's he's got 2 years left. Peterson's 1 more year left. I think Senga's got 2 more years left. So these guys, while they are under contract, it's not like there's these big contracts that you have to worry about eating. They're short-term contracts where you can move them or just straight up DFA them if need be. And obviously we haven't seen the high-profile DFA from Stearns, but he has DFA'd guys all season and just hasn't had a second thought about it. So I would not be comfortable if I was any Mets starting pitcher that is not young and under a rookie contract or a longer contract, which none of them are.
That's such a great point, because as much crap as we talk, and rightfully so, about this rotation and its lack of performance as of recent, there's really no or not many strings attached from David Stearns with these guys. Like, I would not be shocked if Montas is not even here next year, and the Mets just say, here's your 17 mil, go somewhere else. We don't want you because we need this roster spot. It would not shock me whatsoever. And I think that's definitely on the table. Now, do I think that he's going to be gone this season? No, I think that it's already too late. And that's just what it's going to be. But they made the decision to move him to the bullpen. Even he said, he's like, I wasn't happy. You know what I mean? I'm a starter, and I think that I should be a starter, but I'm willing to help the team win in the bullpen if necessary. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, he would opt out.
Yeah.
Maybe he wants to go get
There's no
starting
shot.
pitching money elsewhere, but there's no shot anyone's giving him anything close to $17 million like David Stearns did this past offseason. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of flexibility, and this rotation is not set in stone. I think it is more or less depending on what situation, as you were just talking about, that they put Brandon Sproat in. But for next year, it could look vastly different. Senga will probably be here. Peterson will be here. I would have to guess at this point, even given the overall numbers this season, you have to classify this as a success for Clay Holmes, even given some of the inconsistencies. I think he'll be here, but then you can still have a 6-man rotation and just have the young guys, McLean, Sproat, and Tong, give it a go directly after spring training to begin the season 2026. But enough 2026 talk, because we need to win, and we need to win in 2025. The NL is wide open. The Brewers just got their winning streak snapped, but they have a commanding lead in that Central, and this wild card is up for grabs. It really is.
It
And the
is.
division as well is also up for grabs. Shout out to a Mariners fan in here, Cody. We will be watching today and we will be rooting on your Mariners to beat the Philadelphia Phillies to help us out in the division. 1,000%. I think I can speak for all Mets fans when we say that and when I say that. But also, as we're talking about good performances, there's been a lot of conversation surrounding this next name, and that is Juan Soto, who actually just accomplished something special and is the first player to do it this season. It's the 30-20 club. He has just blown his career high in stolen bases out of the water. And that is, much credit to him getting a lot of good reads on pitchers, but also this coaching staff. Antoine Richardson, I mean, just the work that he does over there and getting these guys prepared to steal bases. That's something that we've been really, really wanting from this Mets team for quite some time now is more impact on the bases. And so having your star player do that in Juan Soto and take that initiative is awesome. 30 home runs. Again, I mean, would not be shocked if he gets to 40 again. I didn't think that he would to begin the season, but he's well on his way there. He's still sporting an 880 plus OPS. I mean, I know the runners in scoring position numbers are dreadful, and that needs to change. He recently just got moved back to the number 2 hole, where a large chunk of this season he was in the 3 hole. So that's some work that Mendoza has been doing in terms of lineup adjustments. But, this right here is still a very, very big accomplishment within itself, Zach. And I just wanted to take not too much time this stream to talk about it, but very impressive stuff.
Oh, 100%. I mean, he's not the most fleet of foot, but he is someone that has done a great job on the base path, stealing bases, taking that extra base, and producing runs via the stolen base. And, someone like Juan Soto, who has never had, 20 stolen bases, but could also be someone that maybe even hits the 30 stolen base mark if he has an insane stretch down this last, 6 weeks of the season. He could have a 40-30 season, and for someone like him to have that, you look as more of a premier power hitter and just bat to be able to get it done on the base paths is just a true testament to how good of a baseball player he is. He is providing for the Mets in a way we wouldn't expect him to. We thought the runners in scoring position numbers would be much better. They haven't been, but he's at least making up for it with the stolen bases and putting himself in position to be driven in by, I guess, now Brandon Nimmo in the 3 hole and Pete Alonso batting cleanup. So it's impressive. It really is. And even when he's having, quote unquote, a bad season for himself, he still has a near 260 average, a near 900 OPS. And, with him heating up as of late, he very well could cross the 260, 270 average and even get over 900 and maybe into the mid 900s of an OPS. So it's impressive, and it's him getting hot at the right time. And it shows that I think the best Mets lineup is with Lindor at 1, Soto at 2, whoever at 3, and Pete Alonso in the cleanup spot. So you just hope for more of this down the stretch, especially if we're looking at a Francisco Alvarez injury that will keep him sidelined for a majority or the rest of the season. Having guys at the top that are producing like they are would be great. And not to take away from what Juan Soto's doing, but if Vientos and Brett Beatty can continue what Brett Beatty's been doing since the beginning of the month, and Vientos, if he can continue what he did last night, that'd be great for the bottom of the order, especially with Torrens coming in there. And Cedric Mullins, while not playing amazing, has been much better at the plate than Tyrone Taylor has been for us this season. So it's been good to see what Juan Soto has done in a down season for him, and hopefully he can continue this up through the rest of the season and propel us into an NL East victory, or at least a wild card position to make a playoff push.
Absolutely. 100%. It's really about getting hot at the right time. And that's true in football. That's true in baseball, as we saw with the Mets last season, even though they, didn't get the job done against the Dodgers. But, that's something that it'll take you a long way. And this quote right here is perfect because it just popped up onto my feed 2 hours ago from SNY. The Mets are oozing with talent and are relatively healthy as they enter a stretch run. And no one will care about what they did in the first few weeks of August if they wind up back in the postseason where they would be incredibly dangerous. I mean, at this point, I the division is nice. The division is nice, and I would love to be, for a change, the division winners, right? Instead of having the
100%.
Phillies and the Braves just alternate. I'm not going to be upset, and I would not care less if the Mets are a wild card team and if they go into the playoffs and take care of business because it happened last year. It happened last year. We saw in the NLDS and the wild card series, right? The Mets weren't supposed to beat the Phillies. Nobody had, well, minimal people had the Mets beating the Phillies in
David
that.
Ortiz did.
Well, the David Ortiz did. That's for damn sure. That was funny. A-Rod and Jeter certainly didn't.
They
But
did
you know
not.
what? You know what? That's I think that when you take a step back and realize where we're at this season, and it's a big if though, Zach. It is a big if. I'm not going to just sit here and say that the Mets are back. They still need to go out there and prove something to us. But if they're able to carry this Mariners momentum, this Mariners series momentum into Washington and handle business, please, for a team that is 100% inferior to you. I mean, the Braves, okay, I get it. There's perpetual struggles there, but there's no reason why this national series can't be a sweep. There's no reason. There's no reason. And I think that to make up for lost ground, I hate to say it, I think that you need to sweep this series. I think you need to. A series win, you'll stack series wins. I get it. You always want that. But I think that, especially to make up for some of these abysmal losses, give us something to be excited about and go out there in Washington and sweep because it's a very tight race in the wild card. And here are your latest wild card standings, Zach. The Cubs, who just lost today, actually, to the Brewers, the red hot Brewers team, are 70 and 53. They're now 70 and 54 after today, and they are up 4 games in the wild card. Padres follow thereafter, 3.5 up of the New York Mets. Mets sit there in that last wild card spot, a game and a half up of the Cincinnati Reds. And the Cardinals are somewhere back there lurking, but they have a sub 500 record. I think that it's really, at this
The
point,
four horse
unless
race.
something drastic happens, it is, yes, a 4 horse race at this point. So, uh, how are you feeling, man? Give me your thoughts. And you see the Mets hitting and pitching leaders up until this point right here. The hitting, I'm not sure if someone has higher than a 268 average, but it is among qualified hitters for the Mets this season. And that was pulled directly from the MLB site. So, what do you think when you look at these standings? I mean, division aside, because with how many times the Mets see the Phillies, we all know that the division is far from over. And being Mets fans, in years past, decades past, we know that this division is far from over, and we've been on the other side of things, the uglier side of things, in terms of other teams catching up in September. But what do you think about the wild card here? Like, what intrigues you? You know, the Padres, the Cubs. For me personally, I don't. Are you like moved by what the Cubs have been doing so far this season? I know they're talented, but something is just doesn't convince me of them, especially with how they let the Brewers catch up and overtake them. But I mean, it would be incredibly sad if we get to the end of this season and the Reds somehow leapfrog the Mets for that spot. I don't see it happening, especially if the Mets are able to turn it up a little bit here in the next couple of days after this Mariners series that we just talked about. But give me your thoughts and opinions on this screen right here.
I'm not overly worried. I mean, obviously, given what we've done since the beginning or the middle of June, since that horrendous stretch of games that I guess we had the second worst record in baseball since whatever it was, the middle of June. Given that, obviously there is some cause for concern. There is something to worry about, but we're a better team than the Reds. I do believe we're a better team than the Padres and the Cubs. I think a lot of the Cubs record was inflated given what PCA was doing, and now obviously we see him come crashing back to earth and not nearly performing at the level he once was. And it kind of shows with the Savant page. His WAR was inflated by his defense and his ability on the base paths, and as of late he wasn't able to really he's not able to really hit the ball, and it kind of shows. He was someone that was chasing the ball a ton and striking out a ton. So I'm not overly worried. Obviously, I'm more worried about the Mets falling back into another slump than I am of these other teams. I easily think the Mets should finish at worst third in the wild card race ahead of the Cincinnati Reds, but I think they could easily finish ahead of these other two teams, the Padres and the Chicago Cubs, ahead of them. They do have another series against both the Reds and the Cubs, if I'm not mistaken. I'm unsure about the Padres. I think we played all of our games against them. But I think that there's ground to be made there, and the ability to widen the gap between us and the Reds there. And then obviously, what's not up on the screen is the lead that the Philadelphia Phillies have over us, which is a 5-game lead. We have 7 games against them, and it's something that we can use to gain some ground on them as well. And while the Mets do have one of the toughest schedules remaining down the stretch, it's still a lot of winnable games. I believe we play the Phillies 7 more times. We play the Braves 6 more times, if I'm not mistaken. Then a bunch of games against the Nationals and the Marlins, as well as the Reds, the Cubs, and some other teams. So this is a tough schedule down the stretch. But you saw the Mets do it in the first 2 months of the season. There were 21 games over 500. You don't get to that point without being a good team. They did such a great job in the first 2 months that they're able to have such a nice cushion where they're still, 8 games over 500 at this point. But you just can't fall into that extended slump like they did. And that's the one thing I want to take away from this is I don't think that any other team is necessarily going to beat us down the stretch. I think it's going to be the Mets beating themselves, whether it's the inability to score runs at an adequate enough pace to win games and pick up for where our pitchers leave off. And, if we continue to shoot ourselves in the foot with overworking our bullpen and them giving up leads later in games, which is something that has happened a lot as of late and is something that the Mets need to correct. There's going to be some ups and downs. We are playing some tough teams down the stretch, so there are going to be some losses. But at the end of the day, you need to come out of homestands and away trips, without being swept. You can't just be swept, series after series after series, which is something the Mets, had done. They lost they lost 9 of 10 games, or I think it was at worst 13 of 15 or 13 of 16 games. You can't have any stretches like that. If you have a stretch of 10 games and you win like 4 out of 10 games, that's manageable. But if you're losing 9 out of 10 games over a stretch, you are going to continue to fall further and further down this leaderboard and finally find yourself out of playoff contention come the end of September. So the Mets need to avoid that. I know you spoke about in this upcoming away trip, sweeping the Nationals. I think what's more important is just escaping this road trip with at worst a split 3-3 and hopefully something like 4-2. Whereas I think you can definitely gain some ground on the Phillies and separate yourself from the Reds a bit. The Reds do go and face the if I'm not mistaken, it's the Angels and then the Diamondbacks. They're away for both trips, and while neither team is particularly amazing, it is still 2 away trips on the West Coast. That is not the easiest thing to do. You saw the Mets earlier in the season. They right before the trade deadline, or right around the trade deadline, they were 3-3 on a road trip. They swept the Giants, but got themselves swept by the Padres. So it's hard to go out there and come away with a winning record. So if you can escape this road trip with a winning record, you can definitely separate yourself from the Reds a little bit, maybe gain some ground on the Phillies, who have a tough series coming up against the Mariners. So it's plugging away wins and escaping road trips and homestands with at worst a 500 record, if not above it. So that's where I'm looking at now, and just continue to play good baseball. Not go out there and basically do nothing on both fronts, pitching and hitting. They need to at least provide on one side of the ball, whether it's the pitching going over and taking over a game and dominating the opposing offense, or the offense going out there and taking over the game and scoring runs in droves to the point where the pitching woes won't necessarily matter. So you can't have these games where you're going to go up and allow 5, 6, 7, 8 runs and then go out and score 1 or 2 runs. That can't happen anymore. You need to go out there and score an adequate amount of runs, or at least pitch an adequate enough game where the offense can win it for you later in the game. So they need to avoid these stretches of baseball where they're just flailing and looking completely lifeless on both sides of the ball. And these last 2 series, while they did get lose 2 of 3 from the Braves and they won 2 of 3 from the Mariners, they did show a ton of life offensively. And these last 2 games against the Mariners, they showed a lot of life both offensively and on the mound. So we need to see more of that, and hopefully it's these guys getting hot at the right time to be able to right this ship and start plugging away and gaining some ground in the wild card race and hopefully the NL East race as well.
Well, hopefully at this point, if the offense keeps pace with what they're doing, I mean, we've also seen a handful of games where the offense has done its job and they've gotten the team a lead like 6-0 against the Braves, and then the pitching just goes out there and is completely lifeless. And it's just like it's hard to do that, and it's hard to remain confident in a team that is losing in that fashion. It's not like this offense has been producing 1 to 2 runs. They've been producing the proper amount of runs to win ball games. It's just the pitching has been that bad, and that's what really needs to change. But I will say the Mets control their own destiny. They control their own destiny, not only where they're at in the standings right now, but also the teams that they do play. The next 13 games in a row are against each of your divisional opponents, right? The Nationals for 3, the Braves for 3. That's the 6-game road trip before coming back home and facing the Phillies for 3, and then the Marlins for 3. The September schedule is tough. I mean, the Cubs, you have the Padres, the Rangers, the Phillies again, the Reds, and the Tigers. Like that,
Yep.
those are quality opponents, and that's going to be tough. But the chat was mentioning earlier about the Reds holding the season series, the tiebreaker over the Mets. The Mets are going to be on the road in Cincinnati, hitters friendly ballpark. That's something that can definitely change if the bats keep rolling. And that's just my biggest takeaway is that this Mets team is going to show you and show us all what type of team they are, if they are actually serious about making a run or not, if they are contenders or pretenders. We don't even need to. We'll know just by if the Mets get into the playoffs if they're contenders or pretenders, because these are the games that should get you up and get you excited if you're a player. Like, yeah, we've struggled for a lot, but we're still in this thing, and we play the teams that we need to surpass or maintain a lead over directly. So it's going to show us a lot. And I really do hope that this team is up to the task, because there's been a lot of rumblings amongst this fan base that their hearts aren't completely in it. It seems like they're just there and going through the motions. And I've said the same thing at a certain point during this brutal stretch. And winning cures all, Zach. We saw it in the game yesterday. There was a lot of smiles. It was awesome. The post-game, press conference between Vientos and Lindor, they were cracking jokes. When you win, and you're not getting those hard media questions, especially from the New York beat reporters, life is good. So let's continue that. Let's absolutely continue that.
100%. And what you mentioned about the Reds holding the season series against the Mets, I mean, down the stretch, the Mets have the ability to at least tie or take over the season series in terms of wins and losses against both teams ahead of them in the wild card standing and the team immediately below them, the Cincinnati Reds. They have 3 against the Cubs, the Padres, and the Reds down the stretch. I believe all those games are in September, so they have the ability to win a couple series. I mean, if they can go and win a series in Cincinnati or even sweep them, they can take that from them. If they win a series in Chicago and at home against the Padres, they have the ability to take the lead over these teams in the season series and hold those tiebreakers, which proved pivotal in making the playoffs and making that run that they did last year in making the playoffs over the Arizona Diamondbacks. So these are important wins. Obviously when you lose series, it becomes tougher to do that. But if they can go out there and score enough runs to widen the gap, or to at least, to win a series and then potentially widen the gap in the run differential portion of it and own that tiebreaker, that becomes pivotal, especially against both the Padres and the Reds. I do think the Cubs do have the ability to run away with that a little bit more so than both the Padres and the Reds, but owning those tiebreakers are big. And obviously it'd be a tall task with the Padres, given the fact that we were swept in San Diego, but we do face them at home towards the end of September. The Mets have been great at home, while they haven't been superb as of late. They lost a ton at home over this last few home stands. they are able to. They should be able to win a few at home against them, and maybe even potentially sweep a series down the stretch. So the Mets need to lock in. They need to lock in. They got themselves out to a nice lead in the first 2 months of the season. That doesn't matter now. They were able to weather the storm, and hopefully they can continue to right this ship and put themselves in a position to make the playoffs. And not beat themselves. If other teams go out there and just kind of blow the doors off you, so be it. But they can't continue to make these mistakes that will lose games. Defensive
That's
errors.
not been happening, though. That's the most frustrating thing, is that nobody has been beating the brakes off the Mets. The Mets have been beating themselves. It's just been absolutely abysmal. So, I mean, that's definitely 100% a valid point. And that's what's got me so infuriated over this brutal stretch, is just like the Mets are just handing, teams games instead of other teams taking these games from the Mets. I think Radiant was talking about a roster potential move regarding, Tyrone Taylor versus Luis Angel Acuna. I think if anyone thinks that David Stearns is going to let go of Tyrone Taylor, you're not living in this world. I don't think that there's any way. I mean, the argument of it is they're basically similar players. One's an infielder, one's an outfielder, both defensive minded. Both don't really provide you much with the bat. But I mean, there's no way, especially with the outfield outlook, that I think Tyrone Taylor is going anywhere in favor of Luis Angel Acuna. That's just my 2 cents on that.
No, yeah, I don't think Luis Angel Acuna will be back up for this major league team this season, and probably going forward. I mean, obviously it was talked a bunch at the trade deadline who was going to be going of those 4 players: Beatty, Vientos, Mauricio, and Acuna. Which one of those would be staying and which one of those would be going, and none of them went, obviously. But in this offseason, it'd be a perfect time to move them for bullpen pieces, where there's going to be a bullpen that is going to be pretty barren, with a lot of guys on expiring contracts. So they could easily move them for some bullpen pieces, or maybe other pieces to fill different positions on this roster. So we'll see what happens on that front. But, given what Tyrone Taylor can do for this team, and basically the only true fourth outfielder we have, the only true outfielder we have on the bench that can play there consistently, given an injury or as a defensive replacement late in the game, I don't see Acuna back up on this Mets team. I don't see him wearing a New York Mets jersey ever again, really, unless there's an injury down the stretch.
So Acuna, from my understanding, because I mean, I was busy this weekend too, so I was kind of going in and out of the news and the roster moves. My understanding is that, for those of you all wondering, I think that's what D is asking in the chat, is I think Acuna got brought up as the 27th man, so to speak, but he never officially cracked the 26-man roster, right?
When was that?
I believe that's what it was. Let me go back here on X and just see the report. I forgot who it came from. Let's see. I mean, I believe that was the case. He was serving as the potential emergency 27th man.
For yesterday?
For yesterday, yeah.
I didn't realize there was a 27th man for that game.
I didn't either, because I thought that was reserved for double headers, so that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, Rob's saying that.
But apparently he was up, and they sent him back down to AAA today, and so I think that's exactly what it was. But
that's as close as I see him getting to this major league roster as a 27th man. Maybe a September call-up if there's no other options, but given what the Mets have, I think there's better options there. Obviously, one of those September call-ups is going to be a pitcher. I honestly, truly, in my heart of hearts, believe it will be Brandon Sproat. And then hitter, I mean, I would have probably put my money on someone like Carson Bench, maybe making a September call-up if he didn't
just
get
went
injured.
Down in the IL.
He got hit, I think, in the upper back or on the shoulder. So he's made his way to the 7-day IL. But I guess it was something where they're not overly concerned, considering it took them a couple days to officially put him on the IL. So it's probably just a soreness thing. But Jet Williams could be an option. There's a speedster off the bench, someone who's gotten time in center field and time at shortstop and second base. So it would be interesting to see. You could also see someone, I know you don't like the name, but what's his name? I don't even remember now. Jared Young.
No, don't even say it. Don't even say it. Don't even. I know
Or
for like
or
lefty purposes, I understand it.
yeah. Or if Alvey injury isn't serious, maybe you bring up Hayden Senger and you have Luis Torrens start behind the dish and have um, Alvey DHing more frequently, on days where you don't want him catching and potentially injuring that thumb further. So you could see something like that. But it'll be interesting to see what the Mets do I guess, coming up in the next 2 weeks with the September call-ups.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what Dolo's saying here, this made me a little bit sad to see,
Second
but
hit.
so well, all the best to him, man. All the best to him. I
I
mean,
think he's like 2 for 25 or something like that. I'm not too worried.
yeah, it's not anything to
Yeah, he's a
think about
136
twice, but
average.
I do agree with you though. If I had to put just any sort of guess on the September call-ups, I'll probably say it's Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams. I think that's probably. I think it's. I mean, with how much we've been hearing about Jet Williams over the past couple of years and all the hype surrounding him, I know he's only got what I think a couple of games, 6 games under his belt in AAA, something like that. I think it's time if he continues to do well in AAA, barring any hiccups. I think he's hitting like 348 over his first couple of games.
Yeah,
Not bad
incredible.
whatsoever. I just call him up. Let's see what he's got and let's see what role he'll play. I
Let's
mean,
see. I'm pulling up the stats right now. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, and 348 average, 609 slugging, 400 on base percentage. He even has a home run for Syracuse, so
the thing
he very
is
well could see it.
the thing is that in your question, the positional players are not going to play. Like they're not going to play. If there's no injuries, they're just going to be automatic bench pieces or defensive replacements at best. So maybe the Mets don't even waste their time on a positional player and they call up 2 pitchers. I find that hard to believe. I
Well,
think it's
don't
going to
you
be
have to
one and
even it
one.
out? Don't you have to
I
even
don't
out?
know
Don't
if
you
you
have to
have
have
to. Is that a
14 and
rule? Because I'm not
14?
aware.
I know you're only allowed
Uh,
13 pitchers with a 26-man roster, so
yeah.
it
So,
may be the same.
well, I yeah, I guess you're right.
I
I guess you're
wonder,
right.
talking about you don't see them seeing any time. I mean, if Mullins continues to struggle, I mean, he obviously hasn't been great since coming to the Mets. I believe he's a step above Tyrone Taylor, given what he had given us this year. Could you see the Mets replacing Mullins? Pushing him to a bench role, and I guess if Bench is truly fine, and could see him taking over center field, and Jet Williams taking over center field.
I could see it. I mean, I don't think either. I don't think any of these positional players. I'll stay true to this statement. I don't think any of these positional players, if they get called up, are going to take any spot from Mullins. I mean, that'd be a bad look on David Stearns, wouldn't it? I mean, to get Mullins at the deadline and then have, I guess a rookie, take his place. I mean, I don't know if he cares about the optics of it or not, but I just don't see any world where any positional player comes up here and gets immense time, even given any struggles for Mullins or Tyrone Taylor at that time. So that's just my 2 cents on that. But again, I mean, I could be wrong. I would love to see Bench. I would actually, if Bench is healthy, I'd call him up over Williams. But I think that if, the Mets are worried about that Bench injury, not that there's anything to be worried about that we know of at this point, I mean, Jet Williams could be the play. Last topic here, just some brief final thoughts about this upcoming national series. These are the pitching matchups. I'm really looking at the starting pitching. I mean, especially for Manaea and Peterson, they need bounce back games. And this is the perfect series to have bounce back games for this rotation, especially for those 2 guys. I think Senga last time out turned in a pretty decent start, pretty good start, good bounce back start for him. You want to see him maintain that consistency as well. But Peterson and Manaea, especially what what Manaea's been doing over the past couple starts and what Peterson did against the Braves, these are get right games for them, and they
Yeah,
need to perform like such.
agreed. You need them. I'm less worried about Peterson. I'm a little bit more worried about Sean Manaea, who, outside of I guess his first 2 starts, though, or first 2 appearances, the one against the Royals, and then I believe it was the Giants coming out of the All-Star break. He was very good, and then since then has not been so great. So you'd like to see him right that ship, especially given what we expected from him. We expected him to be our quote unquote ace, and at the very least look like a top of the rotation pitcher, which he hasn't so far. But obviously he's still recovering or getting into in season form. Getting into shape for the season. Still, obviously, you want these guys to show up in shape, but it's a lot different pitching in actual MLB games versus what are exhibition games in spring training, and then obviously rehab assignment games. So get right against this national team that is not good at all. Go out there and dominate against them, and keep it moving. Keep this spark that Nolan McLean has provided for the starting rotation. Keep that rolling into what will be a battle against two teams that are teams to worry about. Obviously, the Braves haven't been good, but they are still a good team. They still have a lot of talent, and obviously the Phillies. We need to win a series against them. Gain some ground on them in the NL East standings.
Yeah. No better time to play a Nationals team than right now for the New York Mets. I think, and the Phillies just got done with their series against the Nationals. I mean, no better time. And the offense historically that I've watched has a lot of success and enjoys hitting in Washington for whatever reason. It's just that sometimes the Nationals hitters just also like hitting against the Mets, as certain players from every team in the MLB, it seems like. I mean, the Braves with a couple of their guys. Michael Harris, I talked about it with Rob. I mean, Michael Harris, what is his deal? What is his problem with the Mets? Every single time that what he's doing in a season, Michael Harris loves to hit against the Mets, and it's the most infuriating thing. Hopefully, no Nationals hitters have that kind of success in this series, but I wouldn't put it past them because at the end of the day, they are still a relatively young and pesky team, as Ray is saying 100%. And I do like what also Ricardo brought up in the chat too, in that I could see a world where, Jesse Winker, this front office realizes and cuts their losses with Jesse Winker potentially coming back. I'm not sure what the outlook is. Ryan Clifford is your lefty power bench bat. And I could definitely see a scenario where that comes to fruition with him just posting 20 plus home runs. I forgot what the official count was in Double-A Binghamton before getting called up to Triple-A. So I think it's in Triple-A, right? He was part of the
he got called up. He was part of the
yeah. So that's a really good, great point too by Ricardo. So I definitely appreciate it. That's going to do it for us. We appreciate you all watching this little over an hour live stream talking about this series that could definitely be a momentum changer, but it's all about what the Mets make of it. Zach, I thoroughly appreciate your time as well. Final thoughts from you before we sign out.
Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. Beat up a pesky Nationals team, a not so good Nationals team, and keep this rolling into Atlanta, and then a tough home stretch after. Get some wins, stack some wins up, get some space between us and the Reds, gain some ground on the Phillies, and just continue to provide offensively and just be efficient up there on the mound. These starting pitchers need to be efficient, get a little bit deeper into games, and shoulder some of the burden that has been pushed onto the relievers for most of the season, and do not burn them out in what will be a stretch run to make the playoffs.
Definitely, 100%. Make sure to smash those thumbs up buttons and subscribe to the channel as well if you get to this point of the stream. Again, for those of you all, I will be in attendance for all 3 of these games upcoming in DC. Hopefully, I am the good luck charm, but if I'm watching in person, it's going to be kind of hard to do some content. I'll try to get a couple of shorts out there on the channel. I'll definitely be doing some recaps if I'm not able to join the post-game streams. We'll figure something out as we always do, but I will be there in person, hopefully there to watch 3 Mets wins in a row, but definitely a series win against this Nationals team is required at this point of the season. Mets fans, it is crunch time this season right now down the stretch of August. September will be here before we know it. It's do or die time for this team. Hopefully, the losing ways are behind them. Definitely appreciate you all checking out the show. Until next time, catch you all later. Let's go Mets.
Peace. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mariners.